Hello and welcome to this video. And on this video, I'm going to be looking at 10 bands that need to call it a day, that need to pack it in. They need to retire, sit at home, drinking a cup of tea, doing the Times crossword, taking the dog for a walk, poking around in shrubbery with their walking sticks to see if they can find anything interesting. Maybe doing a little bit of metal detecting, things that, older men should do. Not rocking and rolling all around the world. They're too old for it. They need to realise it. So I'm going to do 10 bands, that need to call it a day, sort of ranked. But more importantly, each one will explore a certain aspect of hanging on for too long, if that makes sense. Now, there's some bands where it might not necessarily be that, these members are so old that they need to finish up and go and do something else. In fact, there's no members left at all. In the UK, we have a very famous sitcom called Only Fools and Horses. And in that sitcom, there is a fellow called Trigger. And Trigger, the main thing about him that's funny is he's thick. He's thick as two short planks. That was back in the old days when you were allowed to punch down. Remember when you could punch down, So part of the punching down here was laughing at how thick Trigger was, And he was thick. He was a road sweeper. And they once asked him about his broom and they said, how long have you had your broom? And he said something like 20 years. He said, oh my God, that's incredible. The same broom for 20 years? Oh yes, I've had it for a long time, my trusty broom. He said, I've only replaced the handle 15 times and the brushes 10. Trigger's broom, you see. And that's quite an interesting philosophical question. When does a thing cease to be a thing? When does a band cease to be a band? And at number 10, when did Lynyrd Skynyrd cease to be Lynyrd Skynyrd? Now, of course, I'm not going to try and get any humour out of the fact that they had 3 of them killed off in that airplane crash. But to be fair, it was the singer. Fair enough, that's a bad one. But he has got a brother that's interchangeable, and I think he's singing for him now. This is why I don't say their names, because I don't know which one's which. I know one of them's something Medlock, and the other one's something Medlock. Anyway, they got the brother in now. So, that's not so bad, is it? And then they had a backing singer. I mean, that don't matter, does it really? Get them 10 a penny. I mean, it's awful to die in a plane crash, but it is 50 years ago now, I suppose. And Stevie Gaines, who was a great guitarist, but he'd only just joined the band, so really, it wasn't that bad in terms of keeping the band going. So they did keep going. They got some other people in, and they toddled along, and then slowly the original members died. And last year, I think it's Gary Rossington, but I'm no expert on Lynyrd Skynyrd, but I think one of them finally pegged it. The last one in the band was gone, which meant there was no members of Lynyrd Skynyrd anymore to form a band with. And at that point, you'd think you'd go, let's call it a day then. But no, they're not. They're out. Now, Ricky Medlock or Donny Medlock or Jimmy, whoever the bloke is in now, I suppose he needs the work. But didn't he have his own band? Wasn't he in something like 38 Special or something like that? I don't know much about this Southern rock. I mean, anyone who's doing this channel, I'm going, here's a bloke supposed to be an expert, and you see, the thing with me is that when you watch one of my videos, basically, I don't do any research. And some people might think that's a bad thing, but I'm trying to test my knowledge. So when I sit down, I write the list and then I go. So whatever I know is what I know. There's no fakery here. I'm not like all these Milli Vanilli bloody YouTubers that just go on Wikipedia, make some notes, and then just talk. They might have better cameras than me and better lighting and doing all that type of thing. But I started worrying about my lighting then. You see, I get obsessed by it, what it looks like. But the thing is, if you concentrate on what it looks like and not what it is, you can have the wool pulled over your eyes and you can be Milli Vanilli. And this was what we get in. I mean, over on the old, working man's, local village hall circuit we have in the United Kingdom here, there's many a band like Shawaddy Waddy and other bands like that, going around. And I don't know who's in them, but they seem to keep going. It's like as though if you embody the spirit of the band, then the band's still there. I don't accept this, you see. I don't expect, I mean, the thing is, a band's a band, isn't it? So I think there should be a rule, right? That there's a classic point. Every band has a classic point where they no longer really meant anything. You know, that certain point. And you could, I mean, I could do a whole video on this one. This would be brilliant, you know. So if you take a band like, oh, I don't know, let's take Black Sabbath, for example. When did they stop really mattering? You know, when did it just become just because they were there before? When was that? Somewhere out in 1983, innit? You see what I'm saying? Bands don't last that long. Now, I've got no problem with them carrying on, but at that point, what should happen is arbiters of flogging a dead horse, right? They sit there and they go, right, Black Sabbath, you ceased to be in 1983 when you went and got Ian Gillan in the band. And then you were no longer Black Sabbath. It didn't matter what you did then. You can get Ice-T in and all these other people and people who are Ozzy Osbourne. And even when you all got back together at the end and did that 13 album, you'd done it. It was over. Black Sabbath was over at that. But I can keep going. But whoever was in the band at that point or before is allowed to carry the name forward. So Black Sabbath, they can keep going because you've still got Geezer, you've still got Bill, and still got Tony Iommi. And they could keep going if they want to get a new thing. I mean, I'm not going to. You know why? Because they got self-respect. And there'll be another reason why they're packing it in now. There'll be another reason, although we'll see, won't we? We'll see Mr. Lifeson and Mr. Lee, you know. We'll see what happens in the future, won't we? Right, so that's Lynyrd Skynyrd done. At number 9 on my list of bands that should call it a day, I've got the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, I tell you where my reasoning is with this. Red Hot Chili Peppers come out, and right from the beginning, there's something a bit rubbish about them. And the rubbishness right at the start when they're young is quite endearing. There they are, slapping and a funking and a popping, and you've got them dancing around on stage. And it's not the most intellectual group in the whole world, isn't it? You know, so they're singing about partying on ladies' parts, which I can't see how you would do that. They've got all sorts of talking about Catholic schoolgirls and what they get up to. There's all sorts of nonsense and silliness. It's very ribald. It's ribald. That's what the Red Hot Chili Peppers are. They got Hillel Slovak in, and down in the background, it's like they're doing all sorts of odd drugs and stuff like this. Hillel dies. They get John Frusciante. Now, John Frusciante's good because he can write a song. He can write a song, he can. And then on Mother's Milk, they start writing all these songs. They go, oh my God, they got tunes and melodies and middle section. It's just like funk jam with Kiedis over the top going, you know, on every single song. So suddenly they got songs, that was quite good. And then they get Rick Rubin in, and he knows how to produce them. And you get Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, which is bloody brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And on there they do Under the Bridge, which is great. You know, I don't ever want to feel like I did that day. I think we took the place I love. It's all great, isn't it? You know, Anthony Kidd is slightly off on every single note because he's got no vibrato and he can't pitch properly. I don't ever want to be like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. You know, all of that bit's going on. And we don't mind that. We can put up with that. You know, they can write some songs. They've had a good hit. That's great. Not as good as Give It Away. That's brilliant. Stick to the Give It Aways, lads. And then Frusciante, he decides to go off and become a massive heroin addict and go nuts, doesn't he? So there you go. So they go and get Dave Lombardo in the band, you know. And I think that album's really good. Dark and interesting, you know, but heavier. One Hot Minute I like. Then, obviously the record companies go, come on, you know, write another Under the Bridge. What do they come out with? Boomerang. I mean, that's no good, is it? What the hell's that about? A boomerang? You know, so they then really pull it together and they make Californication. And from that point, I don't mind Californication. I'm never going to listen to it. I'm sure there's some nice funky tracks on there if I put it on. But it's like even at that point, and this is like 25 years ago or whatever, they're too old. They can't keep jumping around with their shirts off. Everything's gone wrong for them at that point. But they have managed to just move over into the sort of, you know, chicken in the basket bloody world. That's what they become then. They become chicken in the basket. Red Hot Chicken in the Baskets Peppers. That's what they should be called. I don't know why Chicken in the Basket embodies what they became, but I'm sure you know what I mean, don't you? Chicken in the basket, that's the only way to describe them. Don't even know what that means. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, that's okay. We're all right. Now, at that point, I think, how many albums do you want to follow on from Californication? How many do you want? 2, 3. Every time they bring a new album out, I go, oh, God. I want another one. And part of it is because the magical mix that was created with Californication, right? They're just going to trot that out over and over again. So there'll be one that goes, I'm rapping and I'm rapping so hard. I'm rapping like me mummy in me daddy but the park. I like to rapping when I'm rapping over there. I'm rapping over here and I'm rapping everywhere. My name is Andy Edwards. I got no shirt on, but I got all that. I've got a mustache that makes me look like the bloke at the Chuckle Brothers. Chuckle Brothers, yeah. The Chuckle Brothers are what we want to look like when we are. Oh, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, and that wasn't as good as Kiedis. He's obviously a bit better than that. But yeah, I mean, here in the UK, as well as Only Fools and Horses, I'm sorry to reference so much British stuff, but it is part of my shtick here on YouTube. So, yeah, we used to have the Chuckle Brothers. One's alive and one's dead. The one who's alive has got a big leg, right? And I'm not joking. He's got this one big leg. I saw it on the telly once. I felt sorry for him. He didn't seem happy about it. I don't want to take the mickey out of it. I'm just delineating the two. So the one alive has got the big leg, and the one who's dead is the one who looks like Anthony Kiedis now. Basically, there's just, even if they were making good albums, even if they could still play live and everything, I don't mind them playing live, but no more Red Hot Chili Peppers albums. We don't want them. We don't need them. It's just diminishing returns. Stop putting them out. There's too many of them. It's like, I can tell you, right, every Red Hot Chili Peppers album, first album's called Red Hot Chili Peppers, the second one's called Freaky Style, the third one's called Uplift Mofo Party Plan, then we get Mother's Milk, then we get Blood Sugar Sex Magic, the famous one, then we get One Hot Minute, then we get Californication. I think that's right. Then after Californication, you get Stadium Arcadium. And then after that, you get Be Here Now. See, I'm not doing too bad, but I couldn't tell you what order they're in. After Be Here Now, I mean, it's like in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. When he's trying to look into the part of his dreams where he can't see, and he turns that bloke's head round and he's always got the back of his head on the front of his head and all that bit and no face. That's what Red Hot Chili Peppers are like. To me, they're like a bloke in a dream with no face. Let's move on then. And now this is totally British now. So Americans, just take this in like it's an interesting story, okay? And just go, well, I don't know who this band is, or I've got a vague idea who they are. And you Americans that know who this band is, you can give yourself an Andy Edwards brownie point. You could say in the comments, I knew this band and I'm American, because this is a band that in this country is one of the biggest bands that's ever been. But everywhere else, well, America, nobody knows who they are. And it's a band called Status Quo. Now, status quo comes from the Latin for being stay the same, basically. It means don't change. Things just carry on as they were. And that's a very apt name for status quo, although it wasn't always such a thing, was it? Now, they were formed way back in 1962, and they're still going now. So this band has been going for 63 years. That's too long for a band to go for. 63 years is like ridiculous. 63 years they've been going, right? The only ones left alive now would be John Coughlin, who's the drummer. Is he still alive? And Francis Rossi. But they don't get on. So all it is basically Francis Rossi. Now, the ones that they've got in, fair enough, there's some bloke Rhino something and somebody else, They've been in the band for probably 30 years or 40 years, right? So, I've got no problem with that. But for me, status quo was always the two guys up front. It was the sort of sarky, how do you describe it? World-weary, rocking, denim waistcoated Francis Rossi on the one side, and he was like a curmudgeon, grumpy curmudgeon, and you could put up with his curmudgeonliness because on the other side he had the fun-loving Rick Parfitt, and he was all bouncy and fun, and they were balanced. It was like the great, lovely mixture together, grumpy and curmudgeonly and world-weary, sarcastic Francis, and then all but bubbly, bouncy, Rick Parfitt. Now he was so bubbly and bouncy that he bounced his way through tons and tons of drugs and all sorts of things, debauchery and all sorts. sorts of things, in a way that made us all laugh. And he kept dying. He'd drop down dead, and then they bring him back to life. And then he'd come on and go, oh, bloody hell, I just nearly died. We need to have a laugh about that. And Francis would go, oh, I don't know about this. Anyway, Rick Parfitt eventually dies. It's just Francis now. Now they're still bloody going. Right, now the other thing we have to factor in with Status Quo is Status Quo start off, right, I think they started off in like holiday camps or something. I think one of them was a red coat, maybe Rick Parfitt, right? So and then they get swept up in that whole psychedelia of 1968. Now there's a whole bunch of bands emerge, like Pink Floyd. Can't believe you've got Pink Floyd, and you've got like Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull. There's all these psychedelic bands coming out. And they come out all psychedelic, doing this tune called Pictures of Matchstick Men. So when you watch Spinal Tap, and Spinal Tap go back to the early days, and they do that psychedelic one, that's taking the mickey out of Status Quo. It's a ridiculous song, because the reason is, it's so ridiculous. So if you think, oh yeah, it's a great song, isn't it? Pictures of matchstick men. It's a brilliant song, right? The reason is because Status Quo are brilliant. And they're not stupid. They know all this hippie psychedelia is not for them. And they're not going to go down the prog route. So they then go and get loads of denim and start to rock out. And they make albums like Pile Drive, and they do tunes like Caroline. And I've got to be honest, in the 1970s, they are only equalled by AC/DC in terms of a band who knows how to rock. Status Quo know how to rock, right? Their songwriting's sophisticated, the vocal harmonies are incredible. I love them. I absolutely love them, right? Now, they kept going, and then in 1982, they celebrated 20 years. And this was quite a big thing, because they were the first rock band, really, to celebrate 20 years. It seemed like an age in 1982. And they ended up, around about that time, doing a gig for Prince Charles, who's now King Charles. And at that point, they start to turn into something else. And they turn up at Live Aid, and they lark about on the Band-Aid video. And before you know it, they've turned into the worst cabaret band in the world. And they're doing songs like It's Margarita Time. And then they decide to make a film. Now, I'm sure that some massive notice has taken, I don't know, that the powers that be, the billionaires elite, they realise that, society could break down if too many people are aware of this film. So nobody seems to register the fact that Status Quo made a film. And they didn't make a film in the 70s like Slade. They made a film in like the 90s or 2000s. And it's like they go on holiday. It's like the worst film ever. I can't even remember what it's called. I've done a whole video on it at some point. Anyway, the Status Quo just get worse and worse and worse. And the thing is, they don't just get older and past it. They just get so cheesy and awful. Now, I know live, they put on a good show, and they've got that following's still turning up, and they're still making a lot of money. But I think they need to now call it a day, Francis. You need to call it a day. He's been out doing acoustic tours, then he's been out reading his book. Just go out and read your book, play acoustic guitar. We need that to stop. Right, number 7. God, this video's going on for a while. I was going to try and do a short one here, but it's not working, is it? At number 7, I've got The Cure. The Cure. Why should they stop? I tell you why. They got 2 choices as far as I'm concerned. Either Robert Smith takes off all the makeup, has a decent haircut, and buys himself a normal suit like a man of his age should, which is probably about 90. Right? Or they pack the band in. So those are the 2 things on the cards. I can't stand a man of his age going out looking like that. I've spoken about this on so many different videos. He shouldn't go out looking like that. So if you don't know what Robert Smith looks like, imagine Edward Scissorhands has eaten too much. Right? He's eaten too much. And imagine that he has eaten too much, and he's gone out, and he's had a bit of a turn, and he's been picked up and taken to an old people's home where he is sat in a chair, playing cards with various old age pensioners and, watching too much daytime TV. And then they find him and bring him out on tour. That's what he looks like now. People love Robert Smith. Now, the reason why they love Robert Smith is because he comes out and says sarky things. This is no, you can't build a band on that. You know, somebody who looks like a goth Dan who just walks around saying sarky things to people. I mean, I look like a goth Dan. And when there's a video, and I've mentioned this before, but it does wind me up. There's a nice bubbly blonde lady, attractive lady, and she goes up and she says to Robert Smith, "Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? You got the so-so work. You know, how excited are you?" And she turns around and goes, "Well, obviously not as excited as you." And I think, "I leave the girl alone just because she's excited and bubbly, and you look like a goth nan. And you're lucky that she's talking to you. You look like a bag of old hair, right? A bag of old hair that's been sat in a sack, and then they've gone and shaved some sort of sloth, and then put jam all over the sloth and thrown it into the bag of hair, and then ruffled it all up, and then cut a hole in it, and head poked up out of that thing. And that's what Robert Smith looks like." So, shall we move on? At number 6, we have got The Who. Now, believe it or not, over in the corner of my room, I have got Pete Townshend's cabinet. His high-watt cabinet is over in the corner over there. No, I can't even turn the camera, it'll cause so much chaos. It is here, I promise you. I've got it in the room now. It's over there, I can see it. Right, you want to go and see it, do you? Oh, bloody hell. It fills up a bit of time, doesn't it? You hold your horses there. Don't get going wrong. Right, it's really dark in here. I'll put the light on. I'll put the light on, shall I? There we go. Hello. Right, so that there, see that there? That there in the corner, Pete Townshend played through that between 1965 and 1971. I'm not joking, it's true. Right, and that gives me a little bit my hair stands up on the back of my neck when I think of that. All right. Right, guys, we've got to put this back into the thing very carefully. Back, there we go. Can you see how this lighting me lock? Can you see how hard it is being a YouTuber? You have to get the light. That's how bloody dark it is in here. I'm using natural light on my face. I've got a bit of unnatural light behind, lighting that up. I'll block that window up to give me a dark, mysterious space, you know. And so it looks like I'm sat in this ethereal. Where is he? He's in a brick room. Brick rooms are always the best place to be in for YouTubing, you know. We don't have plaster and bloody wallpaper as YouTubers, no. It's always bare bricks in the background. I've got radiators as well. They're not so YouTubey. I need to disguise those as something else. I've been thinking of disguising them as amps. And I could just put my Pete Townshend amp in front of it, couldn't I? Now I've got a whole video on that cabinet. Sorry, I keep calling it an amp because I'm a drummer. It's a cabinet, you see, so you have to have an amplifier. Then you plug it into that cabinet. It's a high watt cabinet. It sounds incredible. I mean, that's the sound. Pete Townshend played through that back in the day. You know, at some point that was on stage, and there he was, windmilling his arm round. Keith Moon acting like a bonkers loony in the background. The old oxtail. John Entwistle, there he is playing the bass. The first great virtuoso electric bass player, really, all over the place, you know, doing bass solos in 1965. What a band. And up front, Roger Daltrey. Daltrey's up front, committing adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery, because you're not Roger Daltrey. Only Roger Daltrey should commit adultery, and he did. Moon died, John Entwistle died. They got other people in. Zach Starkey came in, Ringo Starr's son. I suppose he'll do. Son of Ringo Starr, sort of got something to do with it, I don't know. He's in there for about 30 years, and they kicked him out last year. None of them can hit the high notes. They're all getting old. They can't spin his arm round because he's got a bad arm and all that bit, and I think they need to call it a day. The reason with this one, so if you look at what's happened on this video to understand, the first one is because there's no original members. The second one's Red Hot Chili Peppers is because they keep making albums. We don't need any more Red Hot Chili Pepper albums. The third one's Status Quo is because they have gone from being a full-out rocking band to a middle-of-the-road sort of cocktail working man's club band. You know, they've all gone, you know, rubbish. And then The Cure needs to stop just because Robert Smith, he looks awful. He just needs to stop. There's loads of bands like that where that one. And with The Who, it's the fact that they've got 2 key members, and they've tried. I mean, they've been trying to get around the fact they haven't got Keith Moon in the band for 50 years. They never really solved it. 50 years. But now they're too old to do what The Who does, which is sing My Generation and say, I hope I die before I get old. Liar. So let's move on. At number 5, we've got the Foo Fighters. Now, do I need to explain? Now, the reason the Foo Fighters need to stop, the reason why they're on the list at number 5, is because they should never have started in the first place. Right, there's some bands, like Stereophonics is another band. Why are they going? Right, this band comes out, they have a few hit records, fair enough, let's just ignore them, they'll go away, you know, they'll do a Cooler Shaker or bloody Spin Doctors at some point. They're not going to be around for long, not a band like that, not that middle of the cruddy, you know, sort of bloody estate agent rock that these bands are purveying. You know, oh God, I've got to plug my power and it's telling me I've got no power. It's telling me I've got no power. How do I plug this one in? Where is it? I'm pretty sure that when I started this video, I'm pretty sure that I was the other way around. So will I be now upside down? If I am upside down, then, because the whole point with this video is I'm doing it in 4K. See, the thing with me, my YouTubing is very Brechterian. Don't want to be pretentious, but I do the YouTube video, but I also like the inner monologue that goes on about actually making the YouTube thing, and the way that what I'm worried about, all these little worries, and I've decided to go to 4K so you can watch me on a big screen, and I'm filming in 4K, and it's just putting me off. You see, it's just, you know, it's just putting me off. I don't know why. I don't like high quality. I like low quality. You can feel free when you're in the low quality world, but in the high quality world you don't. And you see, what is the thing I do in my YouTube videos? I do it, you see. And only clever intellectual people do it. And then all the ones you like me, it's because you understand me. Those of you watching me going, this bloke's terrible, how come he's got 60,000 subscribers? You don't understand it. I'm too sophisticated for you, you see. Too sophisticated. And you need to go back and listen to the Foo Fighters, because they're the sort of people who they got no taste. They don't know right from wrong. What time is it? I've had to get a different phone because my phone. So now I used to film on my phone, you see, and so I'm just checking the time, but I've forgotten that I'd put a picture of my dog wearing my hat on my front screen. He's got a bit of a messy chops around him. You've got to excuse that there. It sounds like he could be drinking water. He's got that sort of fur that goes dark, you know. A lot of you are thinking, those of you who don't get it, you don't get it. It's a stream of consciousness, and you have to let it free. But you don't realize how cathartic it is for me to be able to do this. And so as I get halfway through the video to Foo Fighters, I've spoken about them so much that I am now going to just access the deep reaches of my subconscious to talk about them, to really drag up what it is I don't like about the Foo Fighters, because that's the only reason why I want them to stop. Flappy, fringe, white velvet trousers, big teeth, smiling, big-headed bastard, chummy git, faceless sidemen, dead drummers, and not like Nirvana, more like status quo, and he's all pretends to be nice and he's not. The man who runs it is not nice. We know he's not nice, he's bossy. He's bossy. He tells them all what to do. They have to do what he says. It's not a band. It's not a real band. It's not a band. It's just a bossy band that's run by a bossy man. He's got big teeth. He's got floppy black hair. And he grows a beard now. Don't like him. He looks like Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen. And he's a bloody snotty little snob, isn't he? Going round telling people what they should have on their wallpaper. And they're doing rubbish painting to fat nude ladies. And the Americans don't know what I'm on about now, but it doesn't matter because this one's full of British references and the British people are laughing anyway. Don't like the Foo Fighters. They're rubbish. They're like, think they represent rock and they don't represent rock. No, they do not represent rock. They represent shit. That's what they represent. It's like a big shit in a load of millionaire bastard doing too many gigs and not stopping and letting it going on for too long and thinking they're the best thing and doing everything. I hate about the fucking Foo Fighters. Oh, I fucking hate them. Oh, I think I've done the Foo Fighters now. I mean, when you have to go scrape the barrel that low, when you have to go that down deep, you know, that, I mean, the thing is, you all could do this. If you there's a band you don't like, just close your eyes and just say the first thing that comes into your head. The first thing. It might not even sound rational. It might not even make sense. White velvet trousers, what does that mean? What does white velvet trousers mean? But we know what it means, don't we? Only a twat would wear white velvet trousers. That's what it means. You know, women could wear white velvet trousers. I mean, Tina Turner could wear them. I ain't got a problem with her wearing it. But anybody else, imagine Bon Scott putting some white velvet trousers. But he could pull it off, couldn't he? Now I'm thinking about his private parts because they're massive. Have you ever looked at nobody mentions this. AC/DC, there's Bon Scott looking all, you know, like, ooh, I'm a cheeky chap, aren't I? And I'm thinking, yeah, but look what you got down the front of your trousers, mate. What the hell's going on there? You know, some balls they are for full fancy dress, for balls for charity. But the balls that I like best, he says the other sort of balls he likes. Big balls. Right, number 4 on this stupid list for a stupid video. Bloody hell. These are what get the views, you know. I'm a trained musician. I've been a musician for 40 years, professional musician. I've played on albums and stuff like that. I've got a ton of chops. I used to do 6 hours practice a day on the drums and 5 hours practice a day on guitar. You know, I learned to play the Black Page and all that type of stuff, you know, and I've done played Glastonbury and things like this, you know. And I used to be head of music in college. I used to do lecture up to degree level and talk about all things in popular music and rock music and you know, it's like that's, I don't know. I cannot believe that in the end, when it comes down to it, there's more success to be had by me closing my eyes and doing some sort of stream of consciousness nonsense about the Foo Fighters. But the thing with YouTube is YouTube. And that's what it is. That's what people like, right? You're sat at home and you've put this on because you thought, I wonder who that would be. And you're much more interested in knowing something that's bad. And you're much more interested in me going on about something that's bad. And then when I rant at a level which is so ridiculous, you sort of, the ones who get it, they have a laugh along. And the ones who don't, they get really angry. Because they're stupid. The stupid ones go, how can you say that about the Foo Fighters? I love the Foo Fighters. No one's going to say that. No one's going to act like that towards the Foo Fighters. Now, at number 4, I have a band, which is almost like, how many of you know about sort of the philosophy of Plato, you know, and his sort of, the philosophical problem with categories, you know? So when I say rock band, what does that mean? They're words that are pointing to something out in the universe, aren't they? The category of the rock band. So AC/DC is a rock band, Status Quo is a rock band, you know, Primus are a rock band. What about the Residents? Are they a rock band? The Doors, are they a rock band? I suppose they are a rock band. What about Bill Haley and the Comets? Are they a rock band? What about Louis Jordan? Is that a rock band? No, that's not a rock band, is it? What about Chuck Berry and his band? Well, that's sort of a rock band, more of a rock and roll band. What about the Kings? All their rock and roll. So how are we making those judgments? And old Plato was very worried about it. And he thought, well, what there must be some sort of realm. And in that realm, there must be forms which are like the perfect form to which all these things are like a diminution. All right? It's like you've got the perfect rock band. In your mind, you have what a rock band is. And then you take that idea of perfection, and then you look at this thing in that exists in the real world, and you go, well, yeah, that sort of resembles that sort of. I think that's what I think Plato meant, but I think it's much more complex than that, because it really hinted that there was some sort of goal that we're aiming at. And also suggests that we as human beings that we've fallen from perfection and we can't quite create perfection. Now, the platonic band, the platonic rock band, I would say, is the Rolling Stones. All the archetypes are there, aren't they, really, with the Rolling Stones? You've got steady drummer, steady, just banging out the beat, steady. Not going to do any of that flashy stuff. That's all jazz, that is. That's all big band jazz, you know. Don't mind a bit of John Bonham, but that's moving away from the platonic form of the steady rock drummer. Simon Kirk, Phil Rudd, Charlie Watts. Oh, that's a proper drummer, hasn't he? Don't need all those bloody fancy fills and millions of toms. There you go, you see. So there's your platonic rock drummer. Then what about the bass holding it down? You know, and Bill Wyman's holding it down, but he's not only is he holding it down, he's got a thing about the ladies, hasn't he? He's just he's got too many beans, he has. I mean, he was older than the band. He is literally 90 now, I think. I think he's coming up to 90 years old. I mean, he went off with that Mandy Smith. I mean, how old would she? I mean, we don't mention it, do we? So he sits there holding it down, but, you know, looking and eyeing up, and he's going to, you know, cop off with 1,000 women. There's that archetype there. Then you got Keith Richards, he's the guitar hero. Low slung guitar, cigarette, legs splayed. You know, that's it. Then you got Mick Jagger, and Mick Jagger's doing he's the front man. He's frilly. They have to be frilly, and they're all frilly, and they're jumping up and down like this, and they're doing all that. They do, you know, a rock front man is like basically a white bloke trying to be like James Brown, right? And missing by a mile. But that's what they are. Then you need the ones that would keep leaving and coming and going and coming and going, you know, and it's like you get Brian Jones, and he comes and goes, and then you get like Mick Taylor comes and goes, then you get Ron Wood, he's been there for a while. And so all those archetypes are there. And I don't like the Rolling Stones, right? But I do like them sometimes, right? I don't hate them. I love Jumpin' Jack Flash, that's great. And Gimme Shelter is one of the greatest moments in rock history. They are great, you know. I know I've knocked them in the past, right? Now, but they are great. But the reason they're great is because of those archetypes. When they're all there, that makes a rock band. Now, of course, rock bands aren't that good, really. But the fans don't want to know about that. The fans are like, oh, they're the best. Yeah, Neil Peart's the greatest drummer of all time. Oh, my God, have you heard Dave Gilmour's guitar solo with Pink Floyd? You know, like that. And they're all like that, aren't they? They all think that these rock bands are the best musicians of the world. But they're not. What are the best musicians in the world? Jazz fusion musicians. Blokes who played with Miles Davis. Those types of blokes. They can sight read, play everything. They're usually black musicians, and they've got more soul, and they got no funk, and they can do the whole package. That is basically the best musician. And you know who knows that? I'll tell you who knows that. The Rolling Stones. Keith Richards can go on, and much as he like him, I don't like this player, I don't like that person, they're all grumpy, and I don't like you because he can play better than me, and he can play better than me. Jeff Beck can do rubbish, Richie Blackmore's rubbish, you know. Eddie Van Halen, I mean, that's rubbish. It's all rubbish, isn't it? All you got to do is have a few power chords and get to take loads of heroin. So, you know, that they're coming from that. But the fact is, Bill Wyman, once he basically shagged himself into retirement and he had to stop, right? He leaves. And who do they go and get in? Darryl Bloody Jones, virtuoso jazz rock fusion bass player. He takes the gig. He's like laughing. Look how fat he's got now. He's so well fed, Darryl Jones is. He wasn't fat when he was in Miles Davis's band, but now he doesn't have to play anything. He only uses one string most of the night. There he is, you know, playing like he can play anything, that bloke. But he's taking the big check, isn't he? And then that poor old Charlie Watts died. So who do they get in? Steve Jordan. He used to play with like John Scofield and Steve Kahn. He's a monster. And he's getting chubby now, isn't he? They all get chubby. The rider's too big. You know, they're not moving around like Mick. You know, Mick's jumping around. And they're not on the drugs like the other guys were. You know, that keeps the weight off. And so now you've got this rhythm section, and then they get the best singers. You know, they used to have a singer in that band. There's a video of her singing somewhere. This is the greatest singer that's ever lived. I don't know her name, but she was not the one who sings "Gimme Shelter," but she's amazing as well. They get all these good musicians around him. God knows who's in the band now, and I just feel like going, you know, proper Rolling Stones people, can't you just leave the stage and let these people properly play? Get Dave sampled. No, he's dead now. He can't get sampled. But just get some proper players up, do some cool fusion. These guys are ready to go. If they did that, they'd be loving it. Can you imagine what they're like on the sound check before Keith and Mick and Ron turn up, spoiling it with their cruddy power chords and guitars that aren't quite tuned? Rolling Stones need to stop. Right, number 3. Queen. Obviously, Queen stopped when Freddie Mercury died. This is goes without saying. But Roger Taylor and Brian May, and I love them, especially Brian May. I mean, he's a national treasure. He's an astronomer. He wears clogs. I always say he wears clogs. I don't know why I say that. Somebody, when I was very young, said, do you know that Brian May only wears clogs? He doesn't wear shoes. And I went, really? And I've accepted that. And I have said it on the channel many a time. No one's ever pushed back against it. But now I'm saying it for probably the 10th time. I'm thinking, really? Is that true? He wears clogs and we know he's an astronomer, But surely, wearing clogs when you're trying to operate a telescope isn't wise, isn't it? I mean, you're not steady. They're too clumpy. There's a lot of fragile equipment around, and you're banging around with your big wooden shoes like some horse, trying to look at Uranus. You're rubbish, Andy. And I wonder who's seen them. I wonder who's seen Uranus the most. My anus. Who's seen the most anuses out of Freddie Mercury and Brian May? It's got to be Freddie, hasn't it? He's only the one that... this is rubbish, It's like, you're descending. And the thing is, Andy, when you started this channel, you were never rude and you never swore. And now that's slowly creeping in. You're slowly getting ruder. It's like going from a Carry On film to a confessions film. That's the trouble with your YouTubing, Why are you doing it for? It's just because your mum doesn't really watch it. I can't really work YouTube. I can't really watch your channel. What you've been up to? I'm just doing some YouTube videos. Well, make sure you got clean pants on and don't say anything rude about Uranuses. Anyway, Brian Deacon, he's right. As soon as Freddie Mercury dies, he does the tribute concert, then he disappears. Like that bloke in Breaking Bad. He rings up that bloke, doesn't he? Foster, the one that, that bloke. What's his name? Robert Foster, is it? Robert, the bloke. He's dead now. He was in, Jackie Brown. Cops off with what's her name, Pam Grier. You know her name, don't you? Yeah, I know who Pam Grier is. We know the old bloke that cops off with her. There's no way you'd get bloody Pam Grier. What is going on in that film? But he gets her, then they don't really get it together. It's a shame, innit, that bloke? And then he got really old. He's in Breaking Bad. And he plays this character that, if you ring him up and he's got, a boat shop or something, and when you ring him up, you say something. Or was it a boat shop? Or vacuum cleaner shop. You say, I want a certain vacuum cleaner. And that's code to, take me away and, hide me so that nobody can ever find me. And John Deacon's gone and done that with that bloke that's out of... Jackie Brown, the one that was copped off with Pam Grier. But they decided not to in the end. But they wanted to. Bloody hell, what a film. John Deacon had the right idea. So what did Roger Taylor and Brian May do? Well, they just descended to hell. First of all, they get Paul Rodgers in, who's the singer of The Free. Or Free, as they're called by everybody else. He's the singer of Free. And he's a brilliant singer. They were, he's a really good singer, just get him in. But he ain't Freddie Mercury. He's a completely different thing. And the other thing with Paul Rodgers is, and you have to just accept this is true. Freddie Mercury seemed like a very ebullient, happy, he was gay, wasn't he? He was very gay in both senses of the word. And that's great, isn't it? But Paul Rodgers isn't gay. He's more grumpy and small. He's got small man syndrome, right? It was like swapping an Afghan hound for a Jack Russell. And he's strutting about on stage, being all angry and ready to have a fight with someone. Now, he's small, but Paul Rodgers apparently is he could really fight. I didn't put him on my list. I didn't know that at the time when I did my list of hard people. You know, because what I'd been told when I go into the hallowed realm of deep rock and roll esoteric knowledge, and I ask the elders to buy the facts, and I tell you the facts that no one else knows. Back in the 70s, Paul Rodgers was brilliant at fighting, and he'd pick fights with everybody just to prove it. He'd go up to all sorts of people. He'd go up to Richie Blackmore, John Bonham, or you might go up to Tony Iommi, and he'd go, "Come on, Tony, come on. You bloody called me small, didn't you?" He said, "I didn't call you small, Paul. You did. You were saying that was small. Come on, come on. I'm going to punch you like that. I'm going to use Aikido black belt. I'm a black belt. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you." And he'd go running at them, whoever it was who'd called him small, but not really. And Paul Rodgers would grab him. They'd grab him by the head. That's all they had to do. It stopped him. And then he gave him and he's swinging, but he can't quite reach because he's got little arms. So Queen, they got him in. Then he was no good. Then they got Adam somebody. Is it Adam or I don't know. I can't remember. One with all the makeup on. He was really camp. I mean, he made like he made. I've really lost it on this one. How long have we been going on? 45 minutes of this crap. He made. Anyway, but it was all right. But it all goes a bit cabaret, and they go down and down. Now this year they've been out with an orchestra. With an orchestra. Roger Taylor and Brian May have been out with an orchestra. I was watching him the other day, Brian May. He's a lovely man, and he's there. Still got the hair, even though he's like 80 years old. Still got the hair, hasn't he? He's not going to let go of the hair. It's all white, but he's still got the hair, hasn't he? Because he's ready to go. Roger Taylor has grown this sort of moustache like this. He's got something else going on. He's turning into a bloody, what's the name from the Carry On Doctor? Oh, God, I've got to remember this bloke. Died in 1977. Used to always play the head surgeon in the Carry On films. James Robertson Justice. That's what I've got in my head. You know him? Yeah, he's turning into him, isn't he? A lot of British references here today, but the Americans could look all this up. James Robertson Justice. It doesn't sound right now I say it out loud. But Roger Taylor's starting to look like him. He used to be quite cherubic when he was young, but not anymore. And he looks a bit grumpy. He looks grumpy because he looks like James Robertson Justice. He was always grumpy in those films. But Brian May's ready to go. He's ready to go now. Well, you know, Brian, do you fancy going out on tour? Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm packed, ready, got my amps ready. So he's ready to go. And the other day, he was being interviewed by Bill Bailey, who's a comedian here in the UK. And Brian May genuinely goes, look, he goes, Bill, you're a fan. You're a fan of me. What should me and Roger do next? How can we honour the Queen's name? Not the Queen of England, the Queen, the band, you know, their old band, you know. How can we honour the band's name? What can we do? And as he said it, you felt people all over the world were shouting, nothing! But Bill can't do that, can he? He's got to be polite. So he says, well, I quite liked the orchestral thing he did. So he just said what they'd just done. And that's that way. They've done that. What's the next thing they do? Now, I've thought of a brilliant tour that they could do if they're listening, if Brian or Roger's listening. How about you book a massive stage, you get everybody in, and then you walk out on stage, there's no amps, nothing, right? But you've both got whips. And lying in a spotlight in the middle of the stage is a dead horse with Queen written on it. And you just basically flog that dead horse for 2 hours for 150 quid a ticket. How about that? Get Ben Elton to write the rest. Okay, let's move on. At number 2, I hate to say this one, because this is one that I don't want to say. This is an example of, I don't want them to stop really, but I think they need to. This is one of those things where someone needs to go up and say, look, chaps, you're brilliant, but you need to stop. And that is AC/DC. Right. Malcolm Young is dead. And it was his band. He was the powerhouse of the band. Okay? So that's one reason. 2, Phil Rudd they've got back in. But to get him back in, they kicked out that bald bloke, didn't they? Was he called Simon Wright? And that was a bit messy, that was. He hadn't done anything wrong. And then Phil Rudd said, no offence, coming back now. They just kick him out. But Phil Rudd's a bit too old now. If they've kept one of the other blokes, probably about 70. But Phil Rudd's like, didn't he try and kill somebody? Wasn't he like an attempted murderer? Yeah, so we don't want to see him on stage. That's tarred it a little bit for me. Cliff Williams, don't know anything about him. He's just there, isn't he? I mean, he could be interchangeable with anybody. He was at one point. They had somebody called Mark Evans, didn't they? Remember him? Why don't swap him with Mark Evans? I bet Mark Evans sat there and goes, why Cliff? Why Cliff? Why not me? I'm on Let There Be Rock. Why not me? Surely they could share it out. I'll come out and do a few, take the money. Cliff. So it's down to Angus Young and Brian Johnson. Now, I don't want to pick on Brian Johnson, but he's like the cuckoo in the nest. He's been there for bloody 45 years. 45 years not being Bon Scott. He's not been Bon Scott for 45 years, right? I only listen to LCDs when they've got Bon Scott, except for Back in Black. I can tolerate a little bit for those Back to Rock, but that's the point, you see. Back in Black, can you imagine if AC/DC had stopped in Back in Black after that? Well, I'll tell you what would have happened. We wouldn't be talking about them now because they've managed to keep going. But I don't like any of it. I don't like Thunderstruck. I just don't like it. I don't like Thunderstruck. That's the only thing they've done in the last 45 years that I can think of. Right? Now, Brian Johnson, at least you could say he is a brilliant singer and he came on and he could do all the high notes and he could sing and do all that. And he's an incredible singer. But he can't anymore, can he? He just can't do it. And so, and so all that's left is Angus. Now, Angus has been holding the show together, hasn't he? But when I look at the poor bloke now, it's just awful. I mean... He looks like an evil leprechaun in a school uniforms outfit. And he's trudging up and down, panting. And the other day, last night, I saw a video of somebody who'd taken it. And you got Brian Johnson walking around, not being able to get in the high notes. You know. So they go in. He's going, all night long. Oh, you took me all night long. He's doing that, and then he walks over to Angus, and he knows he's trying. It's like David Lee Roth. He's trying everything to avoid any bit of the song, anything that will give him an out at some point. So he puts the mic up against Angus Young, and Angus Young starts singing, and he's going, "You took me all night long," or whatever. And I don't know if it was that song, but any point is that it was awful, and I thought, what are you doing, lads? What are you doing? You don't need the money, right? I mean, the thing is, he's called Angus Young, not Angus Old. Oh, it upsets me. It upsets me. What could be done? See, the thing is, Rolling Stones, when they get rid of people, they just get other people in and they play it. But you can't replace Angus Young. You just can't replace him. And he's too old. He's too old. Angus is too old. Right? And even if he can still play well, he looks awful. And I think when you get too old and you look awful, you shouldn't be allowed out. So I think you need to stay in and not be seen anymore. Really. Unless they make some sort of Angus suit, which is basically his face and his head and his hair, whole body, and he can put that on underneath. But then you may as well get some other virtuoso guitar playing dwarf to dress up in that suit, you know. But that would be better than looking at him because he just looks terrible. He looks terrible. And it's like if he had his hair cut, he wouldn't look so bad. If he wouldn't, now it's how this rock and roll doesn't matter what they look like. He's never cared what they look like. Well, I care, and I don't want to see Angus. I actually feel sorry for the bloke. I don't even want to take the mickey out of him in a comedic way. And I bet you're not laughing at me taking the mickey out of him, are you? You're not laughing, are you? Because it's not funny to take the mickey out of poor little Angus. He's a millionaire, right? He's got a wife that looks amazing, that's probably about 2 foot taller than him. You know, he's got a ton of money. He's probably got about 15 houses all over the world. Stop feeling sorry for these rock stars. When I take the mickey out of them, don't worry. Right, the reason I'm punching up. I'm punching up. Remember at the beginning when I was punching down? I always punch up. The only people I punch up are bloody millionaire rock stars right up there. They are. Old millionaire rock stars. Now, at number one, of course, you know exactly who needs to stop. And they need to stop right now. It's a national emergency. You know, it's not like bloody Brexit. The prog community needs to have their version of Brexit. It needs to be called Yes. It doesn't work, does it? Because the band's Yes, number one. It's an emergency on planet Earth, as JK would say. Right? They're still going. They're not on the list. They can keep doing it. They can. Yes need to stop.
Stop it!
And the reason they're number one is because if you want to see the meaning of this video, if you go back through all the other ones and you see all the different things I've covered, and I've really nailed this. This is the platonic video for anybody who wants to know about, bands. Just what's the flogging a dead horse? What was it, that title of the video again? Can you remember? It's a longer time ago, wasn't it? When I came up with it, it wasn't 10 bands who shouldn't carry on. I'm getting too old. You can't remember. You cannot retain anything at all. Oh, it's a worry. We're all getting too old. What were we talking about? Yes, that's the one. Yeah, what were we talking about? Yes. Yes. No, what were we talking about? Yes. No, just tell me. It's confusing. Why would you even call your band Yes? Can you imagine the amount of trouble that caused? And you know how they're a bit stuck up, especially Steve Howe. He's always been a bit stuck up, isn't he? Now, he probably wasn't stuck up in the early days when he left Tomorrow, which was his band, and he joined Yes, came in with all his virtuosity and made it all really good. He's probably just a normal bloke, and then people would go up to him and say, "Hello, Steve, what's your band called?" And he'd go, "Yes." And they go, oh I was only asking. Yes. So what do you mean, yes? I'm just asking. Yes. And doing that for 50 odd years, you become a twat. And Steve Howe, he's just full of himself. And I don't like it because John Anderson, who's my mate, because he's been on the channel, anyone who's been on the channel then becomes my mate. I only spoke to him for 20 minutes, but now I've spoke to John Anderson. I spoke to John Anderson. I said words and they went out into his ear, into John Anderson's actual little ear, his little John Anderson ear. And he thought about the words and he answered them back. He conversed with me. And John Anderson's a proper legend. And John Anderson is Yes. Now, John Anderson is doing a massively brilliant job. This is why that Yes need to stop. Because they're doing a brilliant job, John Anderson is, with the band geeks, right? And I really want to start this thing up, and it never seems, I've said it so many times, but at some point somebody needs to go onto a forum and say, I was watching a video by Andy Edwards, and he said an interesting thing. Surely we need to scrap Yes, right? And we need to let John Anderson carry on, and that's Yes. That would be Yes. Now, this defies all the rules I've said, because the only original member would be John Anderson. But the other ones are so amazing. Now, who's in the band at the moment, right? At the moment, you ain't got Alan White anymore, so you may as well have the bloke out of Band Geeks one. May as well have him drumming for it. On bass, you haven't got Chris Squire anymore, but you've had Billy Sherwood. Now, Billy Sherwood could go and join the Band Geeks, so I'm afraid there's a compromise where the bass player of Band Geeks has to get sacked in my plan. But I think Billy Sherwood would shore it up a little bit. Then we get to the contentious problem, which is the guitarist. Now, the guitarist in Band Geeks is Andy Graziano, who has been on the channel, so he's my mate. So, and also, you know that Steve Howe's going to ruin it. If Steve was to come in, it will be ruined. As soon as he's in, it will be ruined. And that points to the fact that the problem's Steve Howe. Right? So what you could do is you could get the Band Geeks. I'm sorry to talk about your band, lads. I know you watch the channel, and here I am deciding what you should do in your future. But how about this? Band Geeks, you finish Band Geeks, and then you sack everybody in Yes. So Billy Sherwood has to take over Yes. Right? There needs to be a coup. Billy Sherwood needs to take over from Steve Howe, somehow. You're saying puns there and you don't even mean them. How are we going to do that, I ask? Yes. That must have made it even more confusing. What's the name of your band? Yes. What's the name of your band? Yes. What about you? What's your name? How? If I keep working on this, I can come up with some sort of comedic sketch. It's not fully formed. Anybody who's a proper comedian out there, if you could take that material And we could expand that into other bands where confusion is caused by the fact that they have to say the band's name, and that causes, who cares? So Billy Sherwood, he needs to storm the Bastille, right? Which is Steve Howe. Steve Howe is like the Bastille. And he needs to be stormed. Billy Sherwood takes over. They execute Steve Howe. And then he's in charge. And then he sacks everybody in the band and brings in as replacements the Band Geeks and John Anderson. Would that be better? It's ridiculous, but the truth is, it would be better for us Yes fans. Or they could all just stop. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? We should also, I need to stop. We all need to stop. So that's the end of this video. Another idea I had that might help the Rolling Stones. I forgot that bit and I wanted to say it. Because it's a really good idea. It's not my idea. How about the Rolling Stones, right? They need a drummer and they need a bass player and a drummer. And the Beatles need a guitarist and a guitarist, and they need to be able to sing. You know, so how about, because Mick Jagger could play the bit of guitar. So we get Mick Jagger to replace John Lennon, and we get Keith Richards to replace George Harrison, and you get a composite of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Now, if you were to do this, this would be the biggest thing in rock music history, and we could have that tour as the final tour. It could be called the tour that ends all tours. And then after that was finished, not only would the Beatles and the Stones stop, but all bands would stop. And I'm talking even the young ones would stop. Even all the young bands would stop. Rock music would be put to bed at that point. It would be wrapped up in newspaper and stuck up in the loft. And we just give it to all the ones with the computers and autotune, do all their blippy, you know, music. And we just give up. We walk away. We say, that's done, right? Because in a way, all of us, me included, and you for watching this, we've all got a bloody whip in our hand, and we're all on that stage. We're all flogging the dead horse, aren't we? That's the truth. We're all flogging the dead horse. Me more than anybody. See, you thought it was going to be funny, but it's not. It's over. Rock and roll's dead. The whole thing's dead. It needs to stop, and we need to all then wait for death. That's it. I go back to the beginning of the video in a great big elliptical circle. I've got a text message come through. Oh. Right, I'm at the end of the video. I've got into a I forgot I was even doing the bloody video then. I was sitting and thinking about stuff.